Hello Retromovie fans, my name is Retromoviegirl, and today I have for you, you might want to call this a cartoon corner video, the same videos that I do on a regular basis sometimes about cartoons. And this time, it's Daria's turn. Daria aired from 1997 to 2001. And what Daria is an adult cartoon made by Nickelodeon around the same time as, like, you know, when we had that girl power thing with My So-Called Life and different television shows on different networks. This was MTV's very successful attempt to compete with shows from the CW and other networks that had shows similar to this that were not, they were all like live action and not really a cartoon. So they needed an irreverent girl who lives a life in a small town that's mostly honestly made up of white people, and it's very boring. And the first episode, she moves to Lawndale and she's forced to endure a self-esteem course because according to the school she has low self-esteem, so she has to take a course on how to feel better about herself. Daria doesn't really care and whatever, and she really wants to understand the course and take the test so she can get out. But in the midst of trying to do all this, she meets Jane Lane. Jane Lane is her best friend throughout the series. No matter what happens, they always have each other's back, and they're very much sarcastic and make fun of the students, the teachers, the entire town of Lawndale, and they watch a TV show called Six Sad World. It's like a satire. It talks about aliens, all kind of like really weird counterculture stuff. They watch that show a lot, and in the course of the television show, you learn a lot about Daria. Daria is supposed to be, and she is at the beginning of the show, an antisocial. She doesn't want much to do with her parents or her sister, who is more popular and more acclimated to society, you might say, than Daria is. But with Daria, you learn a couple of things. Daria doesn't take anybody's crap. She's quick to call people out or the school out or just individual people or a situation or whatever Daria faces. She's quick to call people out or call attention to something. If nobody else pays attention to it, it's their problem, but Daria takes up for herself and whatever situation the school or the town might be facing. There are a couple of episodes that I'd like to share with you just right quick. I have a whole list here on my phone, so hold up for a second while I pull open the list. But there is a wide variety because it lasted for so long. It started in the mid-90s and lasted until 2001, so it does have a lot of episodes, and you can also buy it here on YouTube for $1.99 an episode, and it is also available via Google Play on the TV and movie section of the app, so you can see it on your phone, and you can see it through Hulu, the subscription service, the streaming service, or you can see it on CBS Access streaming service, which is CBS's app, which is where all the cartoons these days seem to be airing. She's not available on Netflix, it's just Hulu. But I'm just going to get into the episodes right quickly. Let me see if I can find just a few. The first one I have is Pierce Me. In Pierce Me, Daria and Trent decide to go pick up a birthday gift for Jane, but Trent, who is Jane's brother, doesn't want to get her the usual art supplies because she's an artist and needs art supplies, paints, canvases, things like that. And he doesn't want to get her the usual art supplies. So he decides, okay, we're going to go to a piercing place and see what kind of piercings we can get for Jane. Anyway, Daria decides there's a 2-for-1 special, and Trent decides that Daria should get a navel ring, which would make her even more counterculture than she already is. But when Daria gets the ring, she takes the ring out because it itches like hell. She takes the ring out and the hole closes up again. And she's showing Jane before that happens, and she's pulling up her shirt, and Jane says, I thought I saw the Virgin Mary. And Daria keeps going, itching herself, going like this. It itches like hell. And then she takes it out one night and it's gone. And I think Quinn uses it as a blackmail tactic, because I think Daria is holding something over Quinn's head at the time. So Quinn feels, inclined to use the piercing over Daria's head. The next one is Mart of Darkness. Mart of Darkness has to do with Jane and Tom. Jane she has a sculpture and she wants to use gummy bears. She wants to put them in the microwave and use them as an adhesive or as like paint. Instead of using regular paint, she wants to use the gummy bear in liquid form as paint. But unfortunately, Tom ends up eating her gummy bears, necessitating her and Daria to go to the big box store. And all the characters are involved in this episode, but the main thing that happens is that they end up talking about the argument that Jane and Tom have and how the relationship isn't really working. And at times Daria is sarcastic, but she still tries to be helpful because, Jane is her best friend. But the next one of my favorite episodes is Right Where It Hurts. Daria is given a writing assignment by Mr. O'Neill. He kind of reminds me of Richard Simmons with his soft and caring personality. A lot of people make fun of Mr. O'Neill, but he reminds me a lot of Richard Simmons because he's got that soft voice, and he's like, hey kids, be happy, and it's just ridiculous and overblown, but I really like Mr. O'Neill. But in Right Where It Hurts, Daria is given in this episode, they're all asked to read books and write book reports. But Daria comes to Mr. O'Neill and says, I've read all these books already. So Mr. O'Neill gives her a challenge to take people she knows and put them in all sorts of situations. And the situations are fun, and it's just a lot of laughs. There's even one where it's a lot like Cinderella or Snow White, where the warrior has to bring the heart to the witch to cook in her brew or whatever, the liver of a newborn babe. I think that's what they call it, but it's a lot of fun, and I even love what Daria comes up with, where her and her mother and her father and her sister come together and play a game of cards. But what's interesting is what happens to Quinn in the story. Quinn is married to one of the three silly ones that she's always got following her around during this series. Can't remember who she married, but she has all these kids, and they want to watch Sick Sad World, and as they're doing that, the people go, not that, because that's not a very good show for kids to watch. So they're like, not that. But it's a really, really good episode that shows the possibilities of what Quinn could be and what Daria could be. and how their parents, get along after retirement. So it's a really heartfelt, and maybe Daria is not as antisocial and more observant and, gives her opinion on what she'd like to see and not really what is at that point in her life. Because when the sequence begins, Daria has been writing a column saying basically the same stuff that she said when she was in high school and people used to make fun of her and give her a hard time for. She's basically winning awards and doing very important things at that point in the episode. So it's kind of nice to see what could be, what should be, what Daria is looking forward to, at least in her subconscious. But there are lots more episodes. There's one called Antisocial Climbers, where Daria's mother Helen has gotten into her head that they need more family time. So Daria and Jake and Helen and Quinn decide to go, or more accurately, Daria's mother decides they need to go camping. Or was it her father? Her father used to go camping a lot when he was younger. And he decides to take his girls along, and they end up eating psychotropic berries. And the whole scene for the psychotropic berries is just hilarious. And I hope you get a chance to watch it or watch any of these episodes. But the scene with the psychotropic berries and how they're evacuated from the woods is hilarious. And in the same episode, Jane has to deal with a family reunion, and Trent makes fun of his relatives, and they're forced to walk to the reunion, and a lot of funny things happen. It goes from scene to scene so that you can see what each character, Daria and Jane, is going through at the time at different times during the story. And then I'm gonna make separate videos about all this. And then there's Ill, where Daria gets a sun rash and she spends time in the hospital, and there's all these rumors about Daria. And at first, when you first think about Daria, you're like, well, the only one that really cares about her is Jane, and blah, 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 blah. And it's just her and Jane during the entire series. But there are other characters who come along, like Jody. I think I have a video about the recent announcement that Jody is going to be turned into a series by Comedy Central. I'll put that video up here in a card where you can see it. And then my other favorite episode is See Jane Run. Jane decides to join a team sport, which is running, because she can run really fast. But then she takes a bye, which means she can miss a test and still get an A and still go to practice. And Jane decides that maybe the running is not for her, despite meeting a guy that she finds really interesting and really cool. She can't appreciate the fact that she had to take a bye or get benefits just for being an athlete. So there's that. But there are lots more episodes, and in the next clip I'll tell you about more. So I'll see you in the next clip. I have more good Daria episodes for you. And the next one is Die Die My Darling, where Jane gets the idea for the Lady and the Tiger, and she decides she needs to dye her hair. So instead of enlisting the fashion fiends, as Daria calls them in the episode, she enlists Daria, who can't even paint a decent stripe on anyone's hair. She's not equipped to paint or do any type of artwork, but Jane decides it's a bonding activity and they should do it together. They get into an argument because at this point, Tom is already a major part of Jane's life, And Tom and Daria have been spending a lot of extra, what Jane feels is unnecessary, time together. And there's an argument, and Jane accuses Daria of trying to take Tom away from her. What Tom has said during his time on the series is that you would be a fool to think that anything or anybody could shake your friendship with Jane. Now, despite what he said, he does do some things, like in Jane's addiction. He invites himself over to Jane's house. Jane takes a ride with him when she doesn't know him very well. A bunch of things that Daria thinks are inappropriate are happening in Jane's addiction. But in Die Die My Darling, things take a turn. Now, Jane knows Daria doesn't have, any artistic value as far as like physical painting, but why would she enlist Daria to do her hair when Daria could just call her sister and it would be done in no time and done properly? They spend the rest of the episode trying to come to terms with the fact that Jane is in a relationship and the fact that Daria maybe doesn't like it or is trying to encroach upon Jane's time with Tom or whatever it may be, but it shakes up the series and it is a very controversial move. The next episode is Boxing Daria. Boxing Daria has to do with a broken refrigerator, a childhood trauma for both Quinn and Daria, which her parents refused to acknowledge during the entire episode. But when Daria meets into a car accident and spins out on the shoulder, she goes back home and learns that maybe it wasn't that easy to raise a child who is antisocial and doesn't want to talk to the rest of the students, because she's been doing this antisocial thing since she was really little. And her parents just want her to fit in, but sometimes when you're that smart and what the other kids who are of maybe average intelligence don't interest you, you're less likely to talk to them and more likely to talk to adults. And they understand that, and they understand Daria's reasons for not engaging. But the next one is My Night at Daria's. My Night at Daria's deals with the serious subject of sex and whether Daria wants to have sex with Tom and dealing with the deepening of their relationship. This is very unusual for a cartoon to deal with that sort of subject matter. But I think it was dealt with appropriately for the time, and you could still watch today and not really blink. But I also understand Daria's position about the type of intimacy, or that she feels that it would change their relationship, or whatever the reason may be. You make your own choices, and hopefully you make the right ones. And I think Daria, for the way she is, for her personality, she made the right decision. But in my next couple of videos here, in the next couple of weeks, I'll be making more videos about more Daria episodes, because I really don't have time to go into an in-depth talk right here. But I promise in my next video, I'll be talking more about some of my favorite Daria episodes. Hopefully, you'll stay tuned, stay subscribed, look out for my videos, and comment your favorite Daria episodes in the comment section of each and every one of these videos. It'll be a playlist somewhere on the channel. And I hope that you subscribe, like, and comment. And I'll talk to you in my very next video, hopefully very soon. Bye.